remember seeing it as a young reporter, placed on a tall pedestal outside the warden's office at the old main prison. You could page through it like you would a magazine in a doctor's lobby. About 20 years ago, I began asking about the prison book, wanting to see it again. Surely something that important hadn't been thrown away. I was told no one could find it.
The Tennessee State Penitentiary, for its time and place, was state-of-the-art. The day it opened, there were 800 cells inside, and 1,400 prisoners walked in the front door. So from the beginning, it was overcrowded, which they never were able to stay ahead of the increasing population. And there was never going to be a time in the next 100 years, while the prison stood and was in use, when it wasn't overcrowded. It had its own power plant. It had a truck farm for both the consumption of the prisoners and for sale at market, and shops. Lots and lots of shops, stores, foundries, all of that geared to turning a profit, because convict labor was the way Tennessee was turning a profit.
The book chronicles every inmate admitted from 1908 to 1910. 999 brittle pages that tell the story of crime and punishment, ironically in beautiful handwriting. Name, background, and birthplace. Religion, education, and occupation. Mental and physical health is noted. There are lines for the inmate's signature, that is, if they were literate enough to sign their own names. Race is denoted by W for white, C for colored. We can see what sort of jobs the inmates were assigned. And 116 years later, we can see the prisoners' faces.
I was knocked off my feet, I think is the best way to put it, having gone through the records that are at the Tennessee State Library and Archives. What is there is a jumble and hodgepodge of water-damaged records, orders from the inside, all of it in terrible shape. To see this book survive is absolutely astounding. You start seeing the first real psychiatry and psychology rising up. At first, the specialists are called mentalists, and they are, by 1900, they're being called as expert witnesses on trials about different manias, as they called them in those days. But it's the birth of psychiatry and the birth of recognizing mental illness as an illness.
There is one story that jumped off these pages into the headlines. Prisoner 4134, a young Nashville man named Judge Lowe. The Nashville Banner wrote in September of 1906, Lowe killed a Negro, Will Thompson, shooting him with a single-barreled shotgun as he came out of his hen house with a lighted lamp in his hand. Lowe was described as being not yet 20 years old and half-witted. When he was found guilty, he did not realize the gravity of his situation, grinning at the report of the jury. Nevertheless, Judge Lowe was sentenced to death.
They constantly dealt with prisoners that they could tell were were mentally ill, unbalanced, had real problems that they couldn't handle in a facility like that, and there was no way to keep them away from other prisoners except segregating them in an already crowded cell block, which was impossible. So a lot of times they're begging the governor, essentially, or recommending to the governor that the Central State Hospital for the Insane have a new ward. The prison is too harsh for them, but the Central State Hospital is too lenient.
This might be one of the earliest documented cases of appeals to the governor to show compassion for a man with mental illness. The banner writing, "Strong pressure will be brought to bear on Governor Patterson for a commutation," it being claimed that the condemned man is half-witted and is not responsible for the murder.
I don't know that we've advanced much farther today with how we respond to people who cause harm.
I have thought about this and I've prayed over it, and I'm commuting all of your sentences from death in the electric chair to 99 years in prison.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Thinking about people who end up getting arrested today, who end up being prosecuted and incarcerated, in almost every case, there is an immense amount of trauma that has preceded the moment of the action that got them arrested. And typically that trauma has been unaddressed. We do not ask the question, how did the person arrive at doing this? This is abnormal. Why, how is this happening? And let us begin to address that. But for some reason, we go headlong blindly into simply putting them in prison.
In the last year of its publication, the Nashville American was among the papers covering the last days of George Lowe's life. The scaffold used for executing criminals is in good working order. Urgent appeals were coming in, asking Governor Patterson to exercise executive clemency on account of his extreme youth at the time of the crime. In the eyes of 1908 Nashville, George Lowe was too disabled and too young to die. But he was hardly the youngest person behind bars. When I first saw the prison book again, I was given unrestricted access. I immediately noticed many pages with photos of very young boys under incarceration. These photos were taken before the state imposed a total redaction of those pages.
I think it is important for us to know that that we treated our children this way. I think it's important for us to know that. There is value in making ourselves aware of what we've done, regardless of how atrocious it is. And at the same time, there's a part of me that says, but those children are human beings and they have dignity, and there is a sensibility in saying, let us not see their face out of respect for them, out of respect for what was happening to them. And I guess I feel a sense of gratitude to them, their history and their picture that is there, that sacrificially serves a greater purpose, despite the indignity of what the picture represents.
It would take a long time before they would start to finally differentiate between underage prisoners and those of age. But really, it wouldn't be until 1911 when the reform school at Jordonia opened up that there was finally a dedicated facility.
It appears the government was sympathetic in some cases to juveniles. This 14-year-old convicted of murder saw his life sentence commuted to 10 years. And in the end, George Lowe's life was spared. But he would die within 2 years of tuberculosis.
The state prison was one of the things in this state that turned the best profit. Continually, it's in the black every year. Every year it's turning great profits for the state. They're bragging about how much money this is bringing in, which was a godsend in a state recovering from the Civil War and trying to make as much revenue as it could. But the downside of it was there was a lot of incentive to keep that labor pool going. And so the incarceration, mass incarceration of people for even minor offenses continued to be a problem well into the 20th century because they didn't want to see the profits slip.
The world of incarcerating a body in this country is full of benefit for some. Full of benefit for some. If you think about to make a phone call to a loved one from prison, that's somebody's business. Someone is making a lot of income off of that. The vending machines that sit in the visitor area, a snack of a bag of potato chips, $4. In the Tennessee Prison for Women, there are women who work the call center for TennCare. They're making 17 cents an hour maybe. So there's free labor and people are making lots of money off of the bodies that are there. That's not very different from picking cotton.
The past is not past. The past is prologue. We're still dealing with these problems today. History doesn't have to be pretty to be preserved. We used to study the great and the powerful and ignore the problems. We can learn and move on and learn from the past, but we shouldn't try to erase it.
Yes, it is for many and for most too convenient to do what we've been doing, to live where we live, to have our eyes closed and or oblivious to what is happening in other parts of the very same city. And so, yes, I think there is reason to be hopeless that nothing will ever change. There is a reason. I choose to fight for the way things should be. That is a choice. And from that, it doesn't matter whether things will change or not. I am doing the right thing to fight. You are doing the right thing to elevate these faces. That is what is supposed to happen. And if we have any chance of things changing, it will come at the hands of projects like this. It will come in the aftermath, in the wake of people against hope, continuing to tell the stories, continuing to press us to do something different.